Hi everybody, this is Oksana and today I'm going to show you how to make this type of pendant here. And this is a remake of an old video from about 7 years ago. I'll link it, so if you want to see that video you can. But I've been really into making this design lately. As you can see, I've made all these other pendants. And so I thought I would just remake that video, because I don't know, maybe I can do it better this time around, and you know, my camera is newer, so we'll see. Hopefully this tutorial will be an improvement to the old tutorial, but it's basically the same exact design. I'm just using a slightly smaller stone and a slightly thinner wire, 18 gauge instead of 16, and then I'm using half round here to make all the connections because I find half rounds easier. Back then when I made that video I hadn't discovered half round wire yet, but if you don't have half round, that's totally fine. This could be an all round wire video. You can use just thin round wire, no problems. And this works better with an oval or a round shape stone. That is really the easiest because you're bending the wire around the perimeter of the stone. And that is much easier to do if it's round or oval. This one here is a little teardrop. I did manage to do it. It wasn't too bad, but something with a lot of angles, like a square or a rectangle, I would imagine would be really difficult. So I definitely recommend starting with a rounder stone. And that's it. So let's get started making this pendant. So the wire, the base wire that I'm going to be using is 18 gauge round dead soft copper. It's 1 gauge thinner than the one I used in that old video. I used 16 gauge in that one. Feel free to use that. It's just really hard if your stone is small. So I decided to size down to 18 because it's a little bit easier to bend. But I wouldn't go down to 20. 20 is just too thin and floppy, I think, unless your stone is just like really, really tiny. Then it might work, but 18 I feel like is a good one and works well. And so I cut a nice long piece. The reason it's so long is sometimes it takes a little extra to trap in your stone. You have to kind of wrap it around your stone. You might have to wrap it around an extra time. It just all depends how thick your stone is, how high the dome is on the stone. Sorry, my wire keeps moving. I keep trying to measure it. 22 inches. So it's better just to have it be extra long. That way you don't run out, you know, in case something goes wrong, you have that extra bit to work with. And my stone, it's not particularly big. It's about an inch, just a smidge less than an inch. We'll just call it an inch, or 25 millimeters. So about this size. It's pretty easy to work with, especially with this thickness of wire. If your stone is bigger than mine, let me think here. Maybe if it's like an inch and a half, I would definitely size up from 18 gauge to 16. That'll be thicker. And this is dead soft copper, by the way. For my connecting wire, I'm going to be using 24 gauge half round. You don't have to use half round. You can keep this video just all round wires. In the old video, the one that I'm remaking, I used thin round wire. So it can definitely be done with round wire. I just find that half round is a little bit easier, so I want to encourage those that have it to use it instead. But if you don't have it, I would use 26 gauge or even 28 gauge round wire to make the connections, and you would do it in the same exact way with the round wire. For my tools, these tools are the Sunstone tools. They came in a set. There's another tool in that set that I'm not using today, but I'm using the cutters, the regular pliers, and the round nose pliers. So that's the type of tools that you need. The very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the end of my wire and I'm just going to make a round little loop using my round nose pliers. So I like to kind of squish the tip of my wire. That makes it a little bit easier for me to make a nice little loop, and then I'm just going to go ahead and turn it and make the loop. So whatever is easiest for you, however you make your loops, just a nice little one like this. That's all you need. And this is going to go on the back of our stone. If you're able to hammer that, that's really helpful because it makes it nice and flat, so it sits flatter against the back of your stone. So what you need to hammer, or what I'm using rather to hammer, is an iron block. You would have this all sitting on the ground. I'm just holding it in the air so you can see, and so it's in front of the camera. And this is a jewelry hammer. It's called a chasing hammer. Just bought it a million years ago on eBay. But I do want to let you know, if you don't have these things, when I first started wire wrapping, I didn't have the right hammering tools, and I just found like some random piece of metal to hammer on, and I found just our normal hammer. So a normal hammer, that's just like a household hammer, it's not for jewelry. It can leave little marks and dents in your wire, but that's fine. I think it's actually a cool look, makes it look a little rustic. So you can use a normal hammer if you want to try hammering, but you don't want to invest in the items that you need. But I do recommend hammering this piece, but if you can't, that's fine. It'll still work and everything's gonna be fine. It's just makes it a little bit flatter. So if you're gonna hammer, hammer only the swirl. Don't hammer the wire where it's straight, only the swirl portion. So it ends up looking like this, nice and flat. So then we're gonna take our stone, we're gonna put the swirl on the back of the stone like this, just somewhere in the middle, roughly. There's no exact placement here. We're gonna press that down so it doesn't move. And now we're gonna take this wire, sorry for all the noise, it's so long, it keeps hitting like all my cupboards and everything around me, my camera. So I'm starting to bend the wire. I'm pressing really hard to pinch the stone and the swirl together so that doesn't move. So I'm bending the wire around the stone. I'm just gonna switch hands. Just right around the perimeter of the stone. It's going around and around and around. All right, so sorry if you can see well. I can let go now. So there's my swirl in the back middle of the stone, and then here's the wire going around. So once you get here to the top, you have to determine where's the top and bottom of your stone. So this is the top of my stone, like how you want it positioned when you wear it. So what I want to do here with this wire is I want to make a loop. Okay, this can be tricky because everything is very loose. I find it easy just to pinch it like this so it stays. So to make my loop, I'm gonna put a little curve into the wire, and I'm just gonna continue with that. Making a loop like this. So then if I let go, and you can kind of see a little better, this is my loop at the top of the stone, like this. And if yours ended up a little bit too far to any one side, you can kind of use your pliers to help move it along, adjust it. But that looks good, that looks centered. So once you do that, you just continue this wire, continue wrapping it around the perimeter of your stone. And what you want to do is your stone needs to be a cabochon. That's important. Cabochons are domed, so they're wider at the very back where they're flat, and then the domed portion is kind of like rounded as it goes up, so it's smaller, which is how we can trap it. If we keep putting the wire around the perimeter of our stone, it's going to form a smaller window because the stone is smaller on the front because of how it's rounded, and that will trap the stone in. So I have brought it all the way around, and now we're back to the top like this. So if I check my stone, it actually doesn't want to pop out the front. I mean, it's all wobbly, nothing is secure, but it doesn't fit through this front little window that I've made because the window is too small. That's what you want. Now, if yours does pop through the front, that's not a problem. We still have more wire. You can bring the wire all the way around one more time if you need to. That's why we have the extra wire. Your stone might be, you know, taller than mine, or like the dome on it might be different. But after you bring it around one more time, if you need to, and your stone feels good in there, what you want to do is you want to cut the wire, because with the end of the wire we're going to make a little swirl, and you can do it anywhere. It could be here, so the swirl can be here. You can bring it down here, so the swirl is over here. Like really anywhere, it doesn't matter. If you have a preference for the placement of the swirl, I'm just going to cut it here. But you'll see, I'll show you, or you've seen already, the other pendants that I've made. The end of the wire is just in all different locations for me. So if it's easier for you, if your stone is falling out, you can remove it temporarily as long as you can put it back in, or if it's staying in well enough. I just don't want you to drop it. But what we're going to do is just swirl this little end. So I'm using my round nose pliers again. This is going to be very similar to what we did in the back. And then you can make as swirly of a swirl as you want, or you can make it straight. You could even leave it like this with just a little curve in it. It's up to you. In my old video, I actually didn't swirl it all the way. I almost had it completely straight. So it's all personal preference. So just do it however you prefer. And then after that, I'm just gonna lift it up a little bit, just the swirl portion, because I'm gonna hammer it. You don't have to hammer it. I'm gonna actually pop my stone out as well, because I'm afraid I'm gonna drop it when I hammer. All right, so I'm just gonna hammer it just like I did before. Again, this is optional, but if you wanna do it, you can. And it gives the swirl a flatter look. So then afterwards, I'm just putting my stone back in, and I'm putting this back down, pressing it up against the stone. All right, so here's what that looks like. Now it's time to use our thin wire. So either the half round wire or the round wire. So I'm cutting myself a small piece of about 6 inches long. And honestly, this is kind of the trickiest part of the whole piece, is using thin wire to attach all these wires together so that it all stays put. So I'm going to start on the back here, and I'm going to take my wire. If you're using half round, then it's flat side facing me. I'm gonna kind of just put it through about midway. And with these attachments, I just always play it by ear and attach where I feel like it needs to be attached. So if you're feeling it needs to be different for your pendant, then feel free to make whatever adjustments that you feel like you need to make. So I'm just taking my wire, let me just do it again, and I'm putting it underneath, and I'm pulling on it, and by doing that I have made a little attachment like this, a little loop. All right, so I'm just gonna do that one more time, but this time when I have this little wire end here, I'm gonna try and get it to go underneath this next wire. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull on this next wire just a little bit here and try to get my thin wire to go underneath it like this. The goal is to try and connect all the wires. So however you do that, whatever is the easiest for you, so that they all end up staying put and not moving. So after I've done that, I'm gonna wrap the little wire around that wire here. Now I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna try to get it underneath both of these wires. So because things are not secure yet, I can kind of move these wires, lift them with my nail, so taking advantage of that. And now there's not much left of this little wire here. So I'm just gonna finish it off by wrapping it around just this wire here. So before I trim it and finish it off, I'm gonna make several wraps. I would say at least 4, just to make sure that it's nice and secure and connected and it's not gonna unravel. Okay, so this is going to be the 4th one. So once I get there, just trim it. Then I'm going to take that little wire end, I'm going to curve it down, and then just kind of push it down in there, so it kind of like wrapping around the wire and it's hidden. All right, so this is connected here, this side. Things can still be moving out of place, so just keep that in mind. That as you do this, just make sure that you adjust everything so it's correct. This wire here, I feel like I might need to just push it down a smidge. There we go. All right, so now this wire, I'm just bringing it forward. It's going to come here on the front. I'm just holding this. I don't want this to slide so much that my stone can pop out the side. So I'm just trying to hold it nicely. So I'm going to just take this wire and wrap it around. I'm going to see if I can wrap it around. Let's do just one wire first. So just this kind of back wire. Here's what that looks like. And now I'm going to try to go underneath both wires to make that connection. All right, so that worked out. I'm going to do that one more time. All right, so that's good. That's a good connection there. I'm gonna put it, there's this gap here, so I'm just gonna put it through this gap, and then I'm gonna put it underneath here. So if I come here to the back, just gonna wrap around one more time the same way through the gap and then underneath this back wire, just connecting to the back wire. You want to connect this back swirly wire in multiple locations, because as of right now my stone can pop through the back. So once you make the connections in multiple locations, that's going to block the back from your stone being able to pop out. So I'm just going to connect this one more time. And now I'm just going to wrap around just this single wire here. I just need to finish my little thin wire here. Let's see how that looks from the front. Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll just take this wire, I'll bring it across, and then I'll wrap it around just this single wire here. To finish it off, I'll make like 4 wraps and then I'll finish it off, and that also kind of holds this little loop. Since I've kind of wrapped around that loop, that's going to be our bail. All right, so that's good. That's about 4 wraps there. And I'm just going to trim it. I'm going to take that little end and just tuck it in there. Kind of wrap it around the little wire to finish it off. Now I'm going to work on connecting here, this other side, because my stone just really wants to pop out of that side. So I think I need to, just to make it easier for myself to hold it, I need to do this side next. I'm just going to turn my little swirl a little bit because it was just, it had moved. And I'm gonna work this underneath the swirl, and then let's see if I can lift that up. Okay, so I was able to lift that up, so I worked it underneath the swirl and underneath this wire here. So I'm just gonna wrap it around that bottom wire one more time. There we go, that way it doesn't move. And then let me just push on that wire a little bit because it's supposed to be on just the very edge of my stone, but it kind of moved to be on the back of my stone. There we go. Oh, now it's just so much more secure. So I'm gonna try and work this wire underneath both wires here, or actually maybe all 3. Let's see. There we go. That works. If it doesn't work your first try, just work it underneath whatever wires it's going under, and then just keep wrapping it around. So this is a good time to attach this little swirl. Before I attach it, I'm just gonna bend it a little bit to make sure it's gonna be flat against the stone. And then let's see, this can be tricky. Oh, it's not too bad. I was able to work it underneath this wire here. And there we go. That worked. So I'm gonna see if I can wrap just around this single wire a few times so that, ooh, that moved. So what I'm actually gonna do now, because this one still lifts up a little bit, instead of wrapping just around this wire like I originally planned, I'm gonna wrap around both wires one more time. Just so they are connected together nicely. And now I'm gonna wrap around that other wire. Just a few times to finish off. Before you trim off your wire, you always have to wrap it around a single wire. That makes it the least likely to unravel. So I'm just doing that a few times, and then I'm gonna trim and tuck away my wire end. So I'm just bending my wire end, tucking it downwards like that. Let me press on it all this way as well. All right, so here's our little edge here. Nice and connected, everything's good. We got our swirl attached. So we just have this wire here sticking out the back. So I'm just gonna pull on it a little bit, tighten it up. So it's just going across here nice and tight. And then I'm gonna just wrap it around once, because before you wrap it around, it can still move. But once you do this one little wrap. Now this portion can't move anymore. You kind of locked it in place. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come down to the bottom here. So if I lay this wire flat down like this, we would have attached this side, and now we're just gonna attach the bottom, fill in this little gap, because the stone, theoretically, if I really try hard to wedge it out of here, you can see it's starting to come out the bottom here. So I do want to have a wire going across this bottom portion here. And the reason I'm calling it bottom, even though it looks like the top, is because I'm holding my pendant upside down right now. So I'm gonna wrap whatever I can fit my wire around. Maybe both of these wires or just a single wire, whatever it lets me. Okay, so I'm having trouble getting it underneath both wires, so I'm gonna see if I can get it underneath just a single wire then. There we go. Got it. There. All right, now let's see. I should be able to get it underneath just this wire. I'm gonna lift it with my finger a little bit so I can get it under there. And attach. All right, so now these two wires are connected to each other because I made that little wrap, and now I'm just gonna wrap around just this frontmost wire because that's the easiest to get my little wire underneath. And I'm just gonna wrap around several times before I finish off my wire, and then I'm gonna check to see if this is enough and if everything is secure. All right, so I'm trimming that, and then I'm just gonna take my pliers, turn that wire downwards and tuck it in that direction to tuck it away. All right, so now if I look at my pendant, it's got lots of little wraps all around it in different locations, and you just want to see if any part of it is loose, like if your stone is popping through any areas. Mine is pretty secure here on the back. Can't fit through any of those gaps there. And on the front, it's pretty secure here on this side. The swirl is really holding it in place. I would just say that this side here, I don't know if I just didn't wrap this wire close enough on this edge, or maybe it moved when I connected it, but it seems like here on this edge, if I try to push on my stone from the back, it lifts up here on this edge. So if that happens to you, don't panic. I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot it. I know we already cut our wire, so we can't wrap it around anymore. But what you can do is you can just come in here with your pliers on the edge that is the problem, and you can just take this wire and put a little bend in it. I'm going to bend from one side, and now I'm going to bend from this side just to try and make kind of equal looking little triangular bend here, like this. All right, so the bend right now is sticking up from the stone. There's a gap, so I'm just gonna press down on it to get it to be nice and tight right up against the stone there. And that has really trapped that edge, and now if I push on this stone here from the back, it definitely does not want to pop out this top edge any longer. So now our stone is secure from all sides and all edges. All right, so it's pretty much finished except for the bail. Here's what it looks like. You can see all the different little connections on all the edges. So you can use this loop as the bail. I have before. You can just do a lark's knot with a cord necklace, or you can make a bail for this to dangle on, which is what I'm going to show you in this video. So there's multiple ways to make the bail. You can make it just a circle, like just a jump ring. I'm going to cut myself a piece of my scrap wire that I had cut originally. This is just going to be 2 inches long. So you can make a jump ring. You can use other types of wire. You don't have to use this 18 gauge round wire, but since this is what I happen to have on hand and I have a little scrap, I'll just show you how to do it with that. So this is a 2-inch piece. I'm folding it in half and I'm using my pliers. You probably have seen me do this a million times. I do these kinds of bails in a lot of videos. I'm just trying to get these to be nice and flat and together. All right, and then if you have bail making pliers, those are the easiest. I'll show you what those look like. So these are bail making pliers, but you can also just use your round nose pliers as well, because we're just making this rounded. So you would want to use the thickest part of your round nose pliers and just bend it around that if you don't have bail making pliers. But for me, I'm just going to use this portion here and bend around that, just like this. Now normally these little ends would be uneven, one would be longer than the other, and I would just trim them to be equal, but by some miracle, when I folded it in half, I must have just accidentally folded it perfectly in half. It's never happened before, but now it's been documented on video that I managed to do it once. So I'm just using the thinnest little portion here. Again, if you're using just round nose pliers, just go to a thin part of your round nose pliers, the thinner part down here, and try, to try and make a small little loop like this. And notice I didn't close the loop up all the way because I want to put my pendant on it first. And now I'm just going to use my regular pliers, and since there's 2 wires, I'm just going to do 1 wire at a time, and I'm going to close up that little gap like this. And so now it's attached. Now our bail is attached, and now the pendant just kind of dangles here on this bail. And if you're having trouble with that bail, try this one. It's a little simpler. You just cut yourself a piece of wire about 1.25 inches, and then you can use either the bail making pliers, but I'll just use my normal round nose pliers this time in case you don't have bail making pliers. And I'm just going to make a loop on the widest part of my pliers like this. And then I'm gonna make, actually I need to cut this, so I guess a little bit less than 1.25 inches. I'm just gonna trim that because I want this loop to be a little bit smaller, so I'm just going on a narrower area of my round nose pliers, and I'm making a smaller loop. So it looks like this, and what you would want to do is hammer it if you can to make it just a little tougher, a little stronger, and then this would be your bail, this top portion that you'd put your necklace through, and then this portion you could just open that up, put your pendant on, close that up, and that would be very similar to what I currently have on my pendant, except this is a single wire and mine is a double wire. Alright, so this is the finished pendant, and I just have it here again next to other ones that I've made. As you can see, this one I didn't hammer that little loop, just so you can see for comparison, and they all ended up in different locations. Some are on the side here, that one. These two are actually kind of similar. This one I also had to bend the little edge because it was loose, but some of these smaller ones, it was fine. It worked out fine. And this is a little teardrop. The rest are all oval. And as you can see, my little bails are the simpler bail that I just showed you at the end, where it's one piece of wire, but I used a really thick half round wire. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this fun little pendant using thick round wire. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.